Welcome back to the Shade Tree Certified channel, folks. Right behind me here, we're working on a WA480-8 today. This unit is a 34,000 hour, all original unit, original transmission, original engine, original pumps, original axles, cylinders, everything like that. We haven't touched anything as far as major powertrain components go. We have done some after treatment work on it, and we have put several DPFs on it. It's about all we've done. But between electronic fault codes and emissions related stuff, this thing hasn't had any components changed on the engine itself. I think we've done a turbocharger and maybe a set of injectors. I don't even think we've done injectors on it, but this thing runs 24/7, 365 days a year, and I think it's 3 years old or something like that, with 34,000 hours on the machine, and that's pretty remarkable in my opinion. But today I'm out here for some after treatment fault codes, so let's dig into it. So let's take a look at the fault codes that it's got right quick. This thing is pretty mad, so it's going to be beeping. There's no way for me to turn the beeping off, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to key it on. Oh, and it is mad. There we go, and we're going to go down 4, 1, 2, 3, or down 1, 2, 3. Anyway, you got to be really quick with your down arrow 1, 2, 3, because it'll kick you back over to that warning screen on the operator's side. But we're going to go to abnormality record, go down here to electrical faults, and it's got several fault codes active. So it's got, let's see, which one of these is causing the derate. It's got 20 minutes until it's at lock low idle, so we're in inducement right now. So we've got, okay, def injector open circuit error code right there. That one's the one that's going to be causing the derate. And we've also got SCR outlet knock sensor, AdBlue def flow low. That one's not going to cause any sort of derating, that def flow low, and neither is your SCR outlet knocks unstable. It's got 250 occurrences of that, so they've obviously been running this thing with that fault code on it. And then it's got bucket angle sensor open circuit, and I already can tell you that harness right there, you can see that harness is just disconnected right there. So I'm going to have to fix that. That'll take care of the bucket angle code. And first and foremost, I'm going to investigate this AdBlue def injector open circuit error code and see if I can get this derate to go away. I've got a knock sensor on my truck, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a SCR outlet knock sensor in it. And the def flow low is probably being caused by this knock sensor code. That def flow low is basically, it's not seeing the knocks conversion between the inlet and outlet knocks that it wants to see, so it'll throw that code. Basically, it's saying def flow low because it's not getting enough def, is what it thinks. But if you have a knock sensor that's not reading correctly, it can cause that fault code too. So if your outlet knocks is reading too high, or your inlet knocks is reading too low, and it's not seeing a conversion of the knocks that it wants to see, it'll throw that def flow low code. So I'm going to dig into this def injector open circuit fault right quick, because that's the most severe fault code. I'm going to get that fixed, and then we'll worry about these other fault codes. And then bucket angle sensor, it's obviously been having that code since 27,000 hours, so that's not a huge issue. They've been running it, but I'm going to go ahead and fix that while I'm here also. As far as that def injector open circuit code goes, I've got the manual pulled up right here for that fault. As you can see right here, CA 3567 def injector open or short circuit error. Short or open circuit is detected in the def injector circuit. Def pump stops, def injection stops, advances to inducement strategy. That's why this machine is in derate. And so I'm going to go down here to my troubleshooting steps. And the first step is to check for defective wiring harness connector. Basically make sure nothing is unplugged, and nothing is unplugged on the machine. I already checked that. And then step number 2 is to check for a defective def injector. And you are going to ohm between the 2 pins on the def injector itself, and at 20 degrees Celsius, which basically is room temperature, it should read 11.4 to 12.6 ohms. So I'm going to go up to the machine and put my meter on pins 1 and 2 on UDM. Basically, that's UDM is urea dosing module, I think is what that means. So I'm going to go up there and ohm the def injector itself and figure out what that ohm reading is right quick. I've opened up the right side of the hood up here, and I've got my leads on the 2 pins of the def injector, and as you can see, it's reading 2.7 ohms, and that is clearly not between 11.6 and 12.4. So this def injector is bad, so I'm gonna replace it. So I actually keep a def injector and a spare gasket on the truck for situations like this, because I do have to replace these def injectors pretty regularly. And instead of either looking at a job before I go to it, or going to a job and then having to go back to the shop for a def injector, and then going back to the job site, making 2 round trips, I just keep this kind of stuff on my truck just because it's easier for me to keep things and not have to do multiple round trips, and it ends up saving the customer money. And then also I've got this SCR outlet NOx sensor, and the way that these NOx sensors are part numbered is the turbo outlet NOx ends with either 2610 or 2620. The only difference between the part numbers, like this one's a 2720, that means it is a SCR outlet NOx because it's a 27, and then the 20 designates a long sensor lead. So just the wire going from the computer part of the smart sensor to the actual sensor probe is longer. On a 2710, it's shorter. So 2610 is a short, 2620 is a long one. So I keep these on my truck too. I try to keep 1 turbo outlet NOx sensor and 1 SCR outlet NOx sensor on my truck. I just so happen to have 2 in this particular occasion. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this SCR outlet NOx while I'm up in there. I may or may not have to pull the hood to get to this NOx sensor, but we'll see. I'm going to put this def injector on, and just for grins, I'm going to go ahead and unpackage this def injector and then throw my meter in it and just show you what a new def injector should read. So I'm going to stick my leads in the connector, and that thing's reading 12.5, 12.6 ohms, and like you saw, that one on the machine's reading like 2.7. So no wonder we have a def injector short circuit error, because the one on the machine just failed. I'm gonna go and replace this def injector, and then I'll do what's called loaded diagnostics for fault clearing, and I'll get in the book and show you what that means right quick. So pretty much what that loaded diagnostics for fault clearing is it gives you this section right down here below the troubleshooting chart, and it'll be different for every fault code, but this is to, like it says, check if the repair has been completed with the following procedure. Make sure that this failure code is cleared after this procedure. So you're going to make sure the engine is off and the engine controller is shut down, which means you go back there and look at your system operating light, the little green or red light by the battery shutoff switch. Make sure it turns off, and then turn the starting switch to on, start the engine, pull up your def pump pressure on your real-time monitoring and verify that your def pump pressure comes up, and run the engine at low idle for 2 minutes. If it clears it, it should clear itself then, because it's going to start to inject def, and then after it turns itself off, after it clears the fault, you shut the key off, make sure the engine controller is shut down, make sure your light goes out, and then turn the machine back on, and it should self-clear that fault code. If it doesn't, you have another issue. And I will add right quick that you want to make sure your SCR temperature is high enough for it to actually inject def, and I want to say that it has to be above 200 degrees Celsius or 250 degrees Celsius for it to start wanting to inject def. But when you start it up, it goes through its preliminary checks before any of that starts going on, so that's why it says 2 minutes right here, and it should take care of itself within 2 minutes. If it doesn't, just let the engine run for a bit, let the SCR warm up, and then shut the machine off, do the shutdown procedure, and then crank it up and do it again, and it should self-clear. In this particular case, this one should knock off the def injector short or open circuit fault, but it's still going to have the NOx sensor unstable error code, and it'll probably have the def flow low error code also, until I replace that NOx sensor and then do a SCR test on it. So I'm going to go and replace the def injector right quick, and then I'll check back in whenever I'm doing this loaded diagnostics to clear this fault. So a quick life hack whenever you're replacing these def injectors on these things, there is a coolant reservoir up here that provides coolant to the def injector. If you pinch those lines off, you don't have to worry about spilling coolant everywhere. So that's just a quick tech tip on replacing this def injector. So as you can see, I got that def injector replaced right there. And before I cranked it up to do the loaded diagnostics on the def injector fault, I went ahead and replaced the SCR outlet knock sensor as well. And this thing is a complete pain in the ass to get to, man. My thoughts and prayers are with you if you're a freaking mechanic and having to replace this, because that thing, whoever put that in there, I don't know if it was factory, I highly doubt it with 34,000 hours on this unit, but whoever last replaced this had to put their strong arm on it, dude, because I had to get this apparatus out, my Gigantor super duper strong crow's foot on it. It was spreading out my oxygen sensor socket that I got just for these. I've never had one spread like this sensor did. It was just trying to round the freaking nut off on it, so I had to get this thing out. That's usually my last resort. And then, of course, the sensor cable runs down and then mounts right down here on this bracket in front of the SCR assembly. So I don't know why they couldn't have put it like right here. That would have been a very convenient spot for it, along with the ammonia sensor. But, you know, I don't really decide this. I just have to deal with the crap that somebody else decides to do on these machines. So got both those sensors replaced, and I'm gonna put all these covers and stuff back on. This thing goes in right there, and then after, actually, I'm gonna put this on, and then I'm gonna take that over there and clean it off, because it's supposed to have holes in it, but you can tell with the very extreme cleanliness of this machine, it's supposed to have holes in it similar to that right there, but as you can see, that thing is just absolutely caked up with freaking limestone or whatever in the hell is on this machine. So that's actually meant to breathe some. The exhaust actually has a Venturi in it, and it sucks air through the hood and then out the exhaust stack to keep these sensors and stuff cool, and just to keep the temperature down inside the engine bay. So I'm going to clean those holes off so we don't overheat these sensors, and then I'm going to jump in the cab and do my loaded diagnostics I talked about earlier. Crank this thing up, check the coolant level, and it was low, and there's also that huge puddle of coolant on the ground, so I pressurized the cooling system, and I found that this tube running along the bottom of the engine, if it'll focus, right there, that pipe right there, or well, that hose, is leaking like a sieve. So let's go over here to the other side where I can see it a little better. And let's see here. Go down here. There it is. That hose runs across the top of the fuel tank, is either rubbed through inside of the loom, or it just has a split in it or something. And there's no telling where it goes on this side, and there's no telling where it goes on the other side. So I'm about to have to figure that out. It's always nice when you're at the end of a repair, you think you're done. I put a def injector on this thing, and I put a knock sensor on it. Almost broke the knock sensor off, so it took me like a solid hour just to get the old one out without breaking it off in the exhaust pipe. But got all that stuff replaced, and then I saw the huge puddle of coolant under this thing, and I asked their mechanic, hey bro, what's the deal with this coolant leak? Are you gonna fix this? Or he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. You think you could take a look at it while you're here? I'm like, yeah, I guess, man. I'm freaking here. It would have been cool if you told me about that, like, I don't know, 3 hours ago, so I could have planned to go and get freaking heater hose or ordered the part I needed or whatever, but instead, you know, I'm stuck with doing this bush fix stuff. So stick with me. I'm going to get this thing repaired. I'll try to show you a little bit of the process along the way, but, you know, I'm kind of doing what I can do at this point. If you're wondering, how are you going to pinch the hoses off, Jacob? Well, I'm going to use this Mac HCP 555 hose clamp. Basically, it's just, you clamp it down like that. I'll just show you right quick, but it's a self-tightening clamp basically. So you put it over hose and then press it down, and then you can just let go. I know there's some out there that are plastic, some of them are like a vice grip style. I've never really had good luck with those. Granted, these Mac ones, they will wear out to where they'll loosen up, hence the zip tie mark on that one. But that's more so because I zip tied it on a heater hose on my truck over there and left it on there for like 2 months last summer because my heater valve went out and they were backward, long story. But anyways, I found that these work the best for pinching off coolant hoses because, one, they're self-tightening, self-adjusting. You can get them into some tight spots. You can just kind of slide them in there and then tighten them down. And then on top of that, these little feet on here swivel, so even if you get it kind of off-centered, like if you don't get the clamp right in the middle of the hose, those things will adjust and clamp the hose down flat. Whereas the ones that just, essentially the clamping mechanism goes like this right here. So if you have a bigger hose and you clamp it like that, it's not going to clamp it shut all the way across. So you're going to have to use 2 clamps or just deal with coolant leaking out. So that's the tool I use in case anybody's interested. I can't find them on Amazon to post them in the link because it's a Mac Tools proprietary, whatever. Stanley Black & Decker, freaking proprietary tool. So HTP 555 if you want to pick up a pair of those. They're really handy. I've got the bigger set and the smaller set, so those are super handy. So I'm gonna get to replacing this hose now. What, dude? Replacing this freaking heater hose? That's all this damn thing was a heater hose that was leaking. That, let's see, I'm gonna turn the camera sideways, but basically that piece of crap right there, but my new hose is hiding somewhere down there. Don't mind all that coolant on the ground, but that thing connects to the powertrain oil cooler right freaking there. Right in between that frame rail, harness, and hose and the powertrain oil cooler. And the first section I replaced didn't even have the leak in it. You see how Komatsu puts this cool loom, this totally encapsulated loom on this hose? Well, it was leaking up in here somewhere, and it was traveling down the loom to the freaking middle of the machine where there was a hole rubbed in it and then coming out down there. So, I mean, that's a lot of good right there. That's where that belongs. I'll be picking that up. That's just for show. That's just how pissed I am right now. But anyway, got the coolant leak freaking fixed. Hopefully. Now, I'm gonna have to fill this damn thing up with coolant because I wasn't planning on doing that, so it's probably gonna get half coolant, half water, just because it looks like that's what was in it. It was basically clear coming out. So we're gonna put some coolant in this thing, and then hopefully I can finally start it and do the loaded diagnostics to clear my fault codes. So stick around. We're not done yet. Almost. We're there almost. Well, I originally meant to get the loaded diagnostics for fault clearing on a video, but I ended up taking a photo instead. I took one photo and talked to the camera and recorded absolutely nothing. So I ran the machine at low idle like the book said to do, and it cleared out the def injector open circuit fault. And then after it warmed up a little bit more and came out of inducement for that code, I was able to stall out the transmission, get the after treatment hot, and it knocked off the SCR outlet NOx unstable error code also. And then for the def flow low error code, I had to do a SCR denitration efficiency test, and I'll show you how to get to that in the monitor right quick. It's a whole process of getting these damn after treatment faults to clear. So obviously with the engine running, you're going to go to your diagnostic tests menu, number 08 on the home screen of the service menu, and then select 05 SCR service test, and then you're going to go all the way down to number 07 SCR denitration efficiency test. And with the engine running, it's going to give you an option to start the test by hitting the check button. You hit the check button. It basically runs through a regen and calculates the performance of the SCR catalyst and whatnot. And then after it's done, you'll get a 1/1 result if everything is working correctly, or you'll get a 1/2 or a 2 and a 1 or whatever it is. And I got ones with mine indicating everything was working correctly. But that was about between running the engine at low idle and then getting it hot and letting the NOx sensor fault clear out. It was about an hour and a half long process in getting all that stuff done, and that's just not practical to video that whole thing. And it's also very difficult to get the exact moment of those faults clearing themselves out on video. Also, they kind of just kick themselves off at random points, and I can't sit here with a camera in my hand and wait and try to record it. So I'm going to go ahead. All the faults except for the bucket angle sensor are now inactive, so I can clear those off of the fault code screen. As far as that one goes, I know at the beginning of the video I said I was going to fix it, but if you couldn't tell, it's got 3,100 occurrences of that code. So just a quick explanation on that bucket angle sensor issue. I consulted with the customer and said, hey dude, this harness is freaking trash. It's already been butt connected 2 or 3 times already. Do you want me to order a new one? He said, No, man, our operators don't really use that. It's been like that for probably a year already. Don't worry about ordering it. So like I was saying, the coolant leak issue on this machine was quite an inconvenience to take care of, and I'm not going to open up the left-hand side of the machine because that fender over there, oh gosh, dude, look at those hood hinges. They're not supposed to hold themselves up, right? Oh God. So anyways, long story short, the coolant leak was down in there on a hose that runs across the top of the fuel tank and then runs up the left-hand side of the frame and connects to basically a heater hose T. And all that was leaking on this damn machine was a heater hose, man. It was so frustrating. So that hose runs down and then around under the front of the engine on top of the fuel tank right down here, and then makes a turn south, goes towards the back of the machine, and then right down in there you can see that little elbow. It connects on that elbow, and you can see my, let's see, you can see my hose clamp down there. That hose clamp looks old, but I just put it on there just because that thing was full of dirt and was absolutely disgusting. Not to mention, I couldn't hardly reach it with my hands. I had to wad my hand up in between. There's like a hole in the frame about this big that hose goes through, and I had to get the old one out, plug the new one on, all in a hole that I could barely stick my hand through. And I would have got that stuff on video, dudes, but let me just tell you, that sucked. There's a reason it's dark out here. One, the homeboy that was supposed to be fixing the coolant leak that normally services this machine was like, hey man, it's 5 o'clock, I didn't have time to get to that hose today, can you fix the coolant leak? And you know, I can't say no, so I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Do you want me to order a new hose? Yeah, dude, go ahead and order a new hose, come back tomorrow. Well, the hose is in Chattanooga, Tennessee at Komatsu, and I didn't get that order put in until 5 o'clock, so it's not going to get here for a couple days. So I went up to the old Ace Hardware up the road and got me some new hose, and essentially replaced the factory hose that had a little split in the side of it, man. Those hoses are loomed just like these AC hoses right here, and they're taped on the end. So that heater hose plugs onto the powertrain oil cooler down here, and it had split like 2 inches into the loom. So I couldn't tell where the leak was coming from. Whenever I pressurized the cooling system to try to find the leak, it went from a slight drip, maybe a little bit of a run, to a run or a pour. It started literally running coolant out of the freaking wire loom, or not wire loom, but hose loom. And the leak, I thought, was right down here. So I cut out the bad section of hose and put in a new section of hose. And wouldn't you know it, I went and connected everything back together, pressurized the coolant system again to make sure my leak was gone, and it was then literally running out of the wire loom where I cut the wire loom off over here on the hose. So I was like, well, shit. And then I realized that I had to dig that hose out and replace it. So I went, luckily I got 10 feet of heater hose from the Ace Hardware over there, and I used about 3 feet of it to replace that section. Took that off, throw it in the trash because I can't use it anymore, and then rode the struggle bus trying to plug the hose on to the powertrain oil cooler, and then ran it all the way over to the other side of the engine and used about 6 feet of hose on replacing the whole thing. So luckily I had enough hose, and luckily I was able to get this thing fixed, because like I said, it was a struggle getting to the that. Gosh damn, dude, this thing's heavy. You know, there's freaking 80 pounds of crap on these damn fenders, and they've been backed into and bent and all kinds of stuff. So anyways, I was able to get the coolant leak fixed, luckily. And then like you saw just now, I was finally able to crank the machine up and do the loaded diagnostics for fault clearing, to clear out the def injector open circuit code and then the NOx sensor code. Got both of those cleared off, ran a denitration for the def flow low air code, got that knocked off of there. Luckily, I got this thing done, and it is now 9:30 at night, and I'm gonna go home. As always, folks, I greatly appreciate you watching the Shade Tree Certified YouTube channel and supporting my content. I ask that you please continue to like, subscribe, share, throw my videos out there to whoever you want to. Send them to your whole address book in your phone just to get some people on my channel, man. It's been growing really well. The last time I checked, a couple days ago, I was at 7,400 followers. I was at 7,400 subscribers. So that's freaking awesome. I thank y'all so much for that. Everybody who's subscribed and is watching my shorts and my main channel long form videos, I greatly appreciate it. It's pretty awesome to see the growth that I've seen on this channel. I know I've said that basically on like the last 5 videos that I posted, but I just can't get over how well this thing's doing with, you know, what I feel like is very entry level content. So hopefully as time goes on, I'll get better, the videos will get better, they'll be more engaging and a little bit more entertaining for y'all. Again, I appreciate you watching. I'm going to end it off right there. This is the Shade Tree Certified YouTube channel. I will see you on the next one.